So Kawhi Leonard is finally escaping the Los Angeles Clippers and is headed back to his home in Toronto. Well, that's what we thought at least. 23 days ago, Shams Charania from ESPN posted, breaking news, the Los Angeles Clippers are nearing a deal sending Kawhi Leonard to the Toronto Raptors for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 first-round picks, 1 pick swap, and 2 second-rounders. And everything seemed to be going according to plan. I mean, the man was back in Toronto, he was attending the Toronto Raptors Summer League games, and within the week, him and Toronto were already planning to talk about an extension in Toronto. However, the story was too good to be true. Not even 9 days later, Shams Charania posted, developing, the Los Angeles Clippers Toronto Raptors trade centered on Kawhi Leonard will not be complete until the NBA investigation into the Clippers is over. So, Kawhi and Steve Ballmer really thought they could escape this huge aspiration scandal? Not so fast. And let me tell you guys, this scandal is an absolute mess. And today I'm gonna break the entire scandal down for you guys to really help you guys understand why Kawhi Leonard, and not just Kawhi Leonard, the entire Clippers organization is in big trouble. To start off, one of the biggest questions in this entire scandal is what exactly is Aspiration and how did the Clippers get involved with a company like Aspiration? Let me explain. To start off, Aspiration was a company founded in 2013, built as a sustainability as a service company with the goal of covering up companies' environmental damages. So think of it like a TurboTax, but instead of calculating your taxes, it's actually calculating your environmental damage and pollution and how you can actually lower that. So of course, any PR office in a major company is looking to partner up with Aspiration. It just makes sense. But how exactly did the Los Angeles Clippers land a deal with Aspiration that would later come to haunt them for a good amount of their future, most likely? And it all started in 2021. In September of 2021, Stephen Ballmer invested $50 million through his LLC into Aspiration. So already, one of the richest sports owners in sports history is investing $50 million into this company. Within the same month, the Los Angeles Clippers announced a $300 million partnership with Aspiration. And according to Pablo Torre, a former ESPN insider, Aspiration was supposed to be the brand with a jersey patch and signage around the Clippers stadium. This was going to be like the Rakuten for the Clippers. Notice how I said was, because we never ever got an Aspiration patch on the Clippers jerseys. Let me continue. The business didn't stop there. On April 4th, 2022, Kawhi Leonard signed a 4-year, $28 million endorsement deal with Aspiration, including a $1.75 million down payment from Aspiration to Kawhi Leonard through his company KL2 Aspire LLC. And this partnership with Kawhi Leonard did not have good reputation within the core of Aspiration, leading one of the former executives from Aspiration told Pablo Torre when the investigation was launched later in 2025 that this deal was just to circumvent the salary cap. That's what they saw it as. But hold on, it gets worse. According to the co-founder of Aspiration, Andre Cherny, said, and I quote, "I never heard a whiff of anything around an endorsement deal with Kawhi or anything around an engagement with the Los Angeles Clippers. You're telling me that you signed a $28 million deal with Kawhi Leonard, on top of that, a $300 million deal with the Los Angeles Clippers, and the co-founder has no clue that just happened?" And this wasn't the only deal that Aspiration's ever signed. They've signed plenty more company endorsement figures. Let me go down the list of the people they have signed. Start off, they have signed Drake. You ever heard of him? What about Robert Downey Jr., Orlando Bloom, Cindy Crawford and her daughter, Leonardo DiCaprio, Doc Rivers, and they even had a partnership with the Boston Red Sox. So, this is not their first rodeo, and what makes this even more surprising is the co-founder doesn't even know about a deal that is the most expensive deal they've ever done. I mean, when you look at the other deals with the people I just listed, add them all up, they still don't equal to what Kawhi Leonard's deal was with Aspiration. So the fact that it's the most expensive deal out of all their endorsements combined tells me that this is something super scandalous already. But hold on, it gets worse. Let's talk about the details of the contract, aka the involvement between Aspiration and Kawhi Leonard. So to start off, the contract consisted of an automatic voiding clause. So if Kawhi stopped playing for the Clippers, they would cut the contract completely. Aspiration would say, nope, we're all set. And Kawhi was also rumored to have a no-show agreement where he could not attend or perform anything that was, and I quote, not consistent with his beliefs, and he could still be paid. To go even further, Kawhi Leonard was supposed to be the face of Aspiration, which was already questioned by numerous executives inside the company, and it was reported that there was little to no effort on Kawhi's side to help be the face of the company, feeding into the no-show allegations. So they signed the most expensive contract with somebody with the goal of him being the face of the franchise. But I think Aspiration clearly had their heads in the wrong places, because how do you pick Kawhi Leonard, the most introverted NBA player like of all time, to be a face of a company? Not only did Kawhi Leonard get his $28 million in contract money alone, but he also received another $20 million in company shares from Joe Sandberg himself, aka the founder of Aspiration. Let's jump back real quick to the advertisement piece of this Kawhi Leonard contract. I mean, the man was seen by the company as hard to advertise and hard to be the face of the company since he had little to no social media, and he's a massive introvert. So Aspiration was stuck with trying to figure out ways to make this man the face of the company, and they even came up with the concept of making him a knockoff of Groot from the Marvel series in order to help encourage planting trees and erasing carbon footprints. This man was literally about to be Groot. That is hilarious to me. But now that we've gotten all that stuff out the way, let's go into the next segment of the timeline with the Clippers. So we start off in September 2021, Steve Ballmer invests. You go into 2022, Kawhi Leonard signs. What happens from here? Let's get into it. So, this contract with Kawhi Leonard and Aspiration, Kawhi Leonard was promised quarterly payments by a company that didn't seem to have so much financial stability, and that financial stability flaw actually showed. It was so bad, Dennis Wong, a minority owner of the Clippers, wired $2 million to Aspiration 9 days before Kawhi's quarterly pay period from Aspiration. Now, guess what happened 9 days later after Dennis Wong randomly wired them $2 million? Aspiration paid Kawhi Leonard $1.75 million and fired 20% of their employees. So when you're looking at these details, you're noticing that Aspiration really can't pay this man, and it gets even worse. So Kawhi's getting his payments. Let's jump to March 2023. Steve Ballmer has to make a buzzer beater $10 million investment into Aspiration in order to keep the company afloat. And why, may you ask? Because they were spending nearly $2 million per week. $2 million a week. That is insane. And within the same month, March of 2023, a breach of contract occurs and Kawhi Leonard was left unpaid, so the Clippers decided to separate from Aspiration. And we jump to 2025, where Aspiration declared for bankruptcy and their co-founder Joe Sandberg was charged with 2 federal charges of wire fraud. So that's the timeline. It's not the prettiest one. It's not pretty at all, actually, and it makes Kawhi and the Clippers and Aspiration look terrible. Originally, when Kawhi Leonard signed his contract in 2022, one of the biggest things that people and investigators still look at right now is what were the immediate efforts between Kawhi and Aspiration. And actually, Aspiration tried to work this out with head coach of the Clippers, Ty Lue. According to Sports Illustrated, the Aspiration contract specified that Leonard would, among other asks, participate in 1 8-hour day of production, 1 4-hour day of public relations, 2 1-hour community service events, 1 5-minute segment per week in conversation while he sat out the 2021-22 season recovering from an injury. So not only does this scandal with Aspiration make everybody, including the NBA, look bad, but this isn't Kawhi's first rodeo either. Back in 2019, when Kawhi Leonard just won that championship and was considered the greatest player in the NBA currently, the man was exploring his options, and he was hungry. Not for another championship, clearly, but for some money. Guess who else was hungry? His uncle, aka his businessman, Dennis Robertson. According to multiple sources, Kawhi Leonard's ask was absolutely insane. According to The Athletic, Leonard didn't just want a max deal. He wanted unlimited access to a private plane, a house, and guaranteed off-court earnings from endorsements. He also wanted to slice the team itself, just like the Lakers had given Magic Johnson 25 years earlier. So the man is asking for not only a max contract, unlimited private jet access, which, if you don't know, is not only super expensive, but it's damaging to the environment, which would actually make sense of why Aspiration would partner up with the Clippers, if you really think about it. And the asks, of course, according to The Athletic, all considered circumvention of the salary cap in the eyes of the NBA, and they were turned down by the team. But Robertson asked for them again and again and again. So, of course, when Kawhi Leonard signed with the Clippers, there was an immediate NBA investigation launched to see if the Clippers actually guaranteed the man what he wanted and granted his requests in an attempt to circumvent the salary cap. But fortunately for Kawhi, there was no evidence found. To me, though, I find it funny that there's 2 NBA investigations now with the same franchise involved involving the same player with the same problem, circumventing the salary cap. Now that we've discussed the scandal, what do I think is going to happen with this scandal? Personally, with all the facts and all the data that's being pointed at Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers organization, it's not looking too good for either side, and I'm genuinely concerned. Not just for Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's loaded. He already has all the aspiration money he needs. I'm worried about the Clippers' future, and let me explain. Fortunately for the NBA, but also unfortunately for the NBA, this isn't the first time we've seen a circumventing the salary cap level scandal. If we time travel back to 1993, the Minnesota Timberwolves were involved with a scandal involving the former #1 overall pick from the 1995 NBA draft class, Joe Smith. If you weren't aware, Joe Smith was sent from the Philadelphia 76ers all the way to the Minnesota Timberwolves to help rebuild around a young Kevin Garnett to make the team an actual contender in the West. And the original method for the Minnesota Timberwolves was to pay this man 3 separate 1-year, $2 million contracts in order to build up access to his bird rights. And what were they planning to do with those bird rights? They were going to slide this man a $93 million extension under the table. Fortunately for the NBA, it never went through because David Stern was walking stuff down back in the day, and the punishment that awaited them is what scares me for the Clippers. This punishment scares me because it is a very similar situation, and if Kawhi and the Clippers are found guilty, the Clippers organization and their entire idea of a rebuild is completely ruined. Now, what exactly is the punishment, Hogan? Let me tell you. To start off, the NBA fined them around $3.5 million, which is in value around $8 million today. Not so bad. But that's not all. The NBA took 5 of their first-round draft picks. The Minnesota Timberwolves literally watched their entire rebuild idea go down the drain. And on top of that, the NBA suspended their general manager and vice president for 1 year. What's so frightening about this entire situation between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Clippers, like if you look at these parallel timelines, it's the fact that the Clippers have only 5 first-round draft picks as they are planning to rebuild their team with the plan of dumping Kawhi to the Toronto Raptors and building around Darius Garland, Brandon Ingram, and young players in the draft. But to be honest, if the Clippers are found guilty, they could lose all of their draft picks. And that would completely ruin any hope of a rebuild in LA. So that's what I think about the entire Clippers scandal. If this actually goes down, it's really not looking so good for the Clippers. But before I wrap up, I want to quickly talk about the actual trade. For the trade, you're sending Kawhi Leonard to Toronto for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 first-round picks, a pick swap, and 2 second-round picks. And I can't blame either team for trading the other player. Both players are having arguably their best seasons in their entire career. Let's look at Kawhi Leonard to start. Let's compare his 2019-20 season, which was originally known as his best season of all time, and his 2025-26 season. The man played more games than he did in 2019. The man also averaged more points. Now, he didn't have more rebounds or assists, but the man had more steals by 0.01, not really much of a difference. However, he was more efficient on less minutes. And why I say it's his best season, because in 2019, when he's around 29, 30 years old, it's expected for someone of a superstar like that to be performing like that. Not Kawhi Leonard at 36 years old. To me, seeing a man like Kawhi Leonard at 36 years old, matching the stats that he put up in the prime years of his life and his career, to me, that is a staple of his best season. This man is playing like he did when he was 29, 30 years old at 36 after coming off his 4 years of terrible injury slumps. Not only that, he was more efficient from the field, shooting 50% from the field and 38.7% from 3, and saw a true shooting difference of nearly 4%. To me, that's clearly the better stat line. Did he take his team to the championship? No, he did not. He didn't even make playoffs. But when you look at individual performance, to me, this is clearly his best performance that he's ever put up, especially considering his age at 36 years old. Now for Brandon Ingram put up 21.5 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 3.7 assists per game on 47% shooting, and 38% shooting from the field. Not only that, the man played 77 games, which is the second highest in his career, since he's also had that similar Kawhi level path of dealing injuries on and off, especially with his late years in the Pelicans. Not only that, but he led Toronto to the NBA playoffs, which hasn't been done like since Kawhi Leonard played there. To me, this also is his best season. So of course, both teams saw that they should trade while the value is high, and they did so. I find this trade to be absolutely perfect for both ways. For me, I see Toronto moving that chess piece and putting it in a win now position, as the Clippers are taking their chess piece and stepping back and saying, okay, we're gonna wait and rebuild and see what we can do. To wrap up, this scandal to me is very intriguing, and I'd really like to see where this goes, but this investigation looks like it's not gonna end anytime soon, so I'll be staying posted posted with updates, and if there's any big changes, don't worry, you'll be covered. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about this entire Kawhi scandal, and thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe. This is HB Collects signing out. Now that we've gotten that Kawhi Leonard situation out the way, another interesting situation is what happened between Boston and Philly. I mean, how is Jaylen Brown being shipped off for Paul George and picks? That's the big question that I answered in my last video, where I dove deep into Jaylen Brown's trade value and why he was traded for what he was traded for. Go check that video out. The link is posted right on the screen.